Hello, and welcome to Makerspace Podcast. My name is Ray Craggy.
And I'm Ian Charnas.
And today we'll be talking about safety and training.
Safety and training.
Yes, this is probably at the forefront of everyone's mind when they walk into a makerspace for the first time. Ian and I work in a university-based makerspace, and so we're often dealing with prospective students and admitted students who are coming in with their parents and asking us the tough questions about how are we going to keep their children safe. And so that's why we have to be prepared with the talk.
And the talk has two parts. First, when those parents ask us, how do you keep my son or daughter safe around all this dangerous equipment, laser cutters, mills, lathes, drill presses, saws, we tell them first and foremost the honest answer, which is that nobody uses this equipment before they're properly trained, and nobody uses the equipment who isn't supervised. So training and supervision is how we keep the space safe. Now, can I say that the space is 100% safe? That we've never, ever had an injury in the 290,000 visits since we've opened in 2012? Of course not. It wouldn't be honest. We do have scrapes. We do have some cuts. These are things on the level of needing to go to get some stitches or needing to go treat a little burn from a soldering iron with some ice. But we do have some accidents in this space, and I want to help those parents put those in context. So, each year, a maker in our makerspace has a 0.02% chance of getting injured. 0.02% chance. How do we understand that number? Well, it could be helpful to use an analogy. So let's use an analogy of sports. Every year, according to the CDC, a K-12 athlete has an 18% chance of getting injured. So 1 in 5 K-12 athletes is going to get injured every year. So that makes soccer, football, cheerleading, and volleyball 900 times more dangerous than making in our makerspace. And it's important to understand that. The kinds of injuries that you can get in athletics are going to include everything from a minor sprain to breaking bones, all the way up to death. It can happen. We know that there's that risk in sports, but you know what? We say it's worth it. We want our child to be a great leader as well as a great follower. We want them to be a great winner as well as a great loser, because those are skills that you need in life to be successful anywhere you go. Whether you're in the nonprofit world, the corporate world, anywhere you go, you need to be a good team player. That's who I want to work with. So we say, yes, we know sports has that risk to it. We know that there's the chance that our son or daughter could be injured, but it's worth it. And we look our prospective students' parents in the eyes and we say, do you want your son or daughter to put their shoulder on the wheel of history and give it a push? Do you want them to have the kind of impact where they are building medical devices to save human lives? They're making green energy more affordable and helping our planet become a healthier place to live. If you want your son or daughter to have that kind of impact on the world, they need to be able to make stuff. And this is where they learn it. This is the pathway to getting them there. So is it without risk? No. There is a risk, but it's worth it.
Not to mention that making is 900 times less dangerous than those athletics activities.
900 times. Is that a significant amount of safety? I think so.
Yeah, the rate of injuries in our makerspace are about as low as you can imagine, and that is no accident. We have taken every precaution.
Oh, I see what you did there. Yeah, that is no accident.
That's no accident.
That is podcast gold.
Our job as the makerspace managers is to turn a keen eye on all of these risks and delineate the high and low risks and make decisions about what is appropriate, what is reasonable, what precautions do we need to put in place that balances what we want our users to be able to do. We want to give them access. We want to get them on this equipment and get working without exposing them to undue risk. And this affects everything from floor plans to our access plan to our proper apparel. Our job is to focus on dealing with this risk. And we're very proud of the numbers that we've posted so far, and we hope that they will continue to stay low because we think making is worth it. So our strategy was to divide up all of our equipment into different access levels that say something about how the equipment is used and whether or not it poses a certain risk to the user. By delineating these different access levels, we can make targeted decisions about what users can or can't do or how they get access. And so that's what we're going to share with you now. The 5 access levels of Makerspace podcast that will cover all of the equipment in your space and allow you to make smarter decisions about how to get your users into your space, working with your equipment, and making those really cool projects.
Okay, Ray, 5 access levels. I want to hear more about this. I'm very interested. Also, I help write the outline. I think I know what's coming. For the people who are listening to this podcast, how can they understand why you would need to separate the safety and training for all these different pieces of equipment? Why is safety and training for a drill press any different than safety and training for a laser cutter? Any different than safety and training for a basic hand tool?
Well, no one at ThinkBox has ever hurt themselves on one of our laser cutters in 6 years. I dare say it's impossible to hurt yourself in a laser cutter. There are just so many safeguards in place that turn off the laser when the door is open and otherwise provide protection to the user from the tool. On the flip side, hand tools like hand drills can sometimes take you by surprise. One of our accidents was someone using a drill. They had the torque turned up all the way, and they were surprised by it, and they ended up getting a few stitches for the experience. So a laser cutter is different than a hand drill, is also different from a drill press. A large powered machine like that can pose a risk of bodily harm, and so we need to find a careful balance between getting users on that equipment so that they can be making their cool projects and keeping them safe. If we erect enough barriers that access to the laser cutter is as difficult as getting access to the drill press, we're keeping our users away from a safe tool that they could be using with much less preparation and much less supervision.
The right amount of safety and training for the right tool.
And so now, without further ado, the 5 Makerspace podcast access levels that you can apply to any equipment in any Makerspace. Let's start with number 1. No special instructions.
No special instructions.
That's right. These are the black and white printers. These are the computers. These are the things in our Makerspace that our users use every day that we have prepared nothing else for them to think about.
The tape dispenser.
The tape dispenser.
The stapler.
The stapler.
We're not going to offer a 3-hour safety training on the stapler.
Yes, and so by adding these into this structure, into this framework, into our access levels, we can say definitively that these are things that do not pose any risk, and we're not going to provide any special instructions. And so the first access level are those daily use computers and other tools that our users don't need any preparation for.
No special instructions. Now let's move on. Access level 2 is submit your job online. We have a few pieces of equipment in our space that we really wanted to get, even though they're rather difficult to use, rather easy to break, and rather expensive. I'm thinking specifically about our very high-end 3D printers. So for our very high-end 3D printers, if you're a user, it's a very easy process. You submit your job through our online form, and in a few days, you get an email from one of our student workers saying that your part is ready for pickup. Why did we do this? Instead of letting our users directly use those machines, because we didn't want to put somebody in the position of accidentally breaking that $250,000 3D printer, right? The Objet 350, it's a PolyJet style 3D printer that we have. It's hard enough to use. It takes enough training that we just have student workers run the jobs. And as a user, you have the really nice experience of just sending us your file and then getting your part. For most equipment in our Makerspace, you use it directly. It's called a Makerspace, not a submit your job online space, right? So it's important that you get to turn the knobs and twist the dials, but for a couple select pieces of equipment, we handled that work in-house. We have our student workers do the job. All you need to do is submit your job online, access level 2. Ray, I'm dying to know, what is access level 3?
Access level 3, follow online tutorials. This is probably the largest category of equipment in ThinkBox. So these are things like our laser cutters, like our tabletop 3D printers, like our soldering irons, the pieces of equipment in our space that pose a low risk so that we can just prepare instructional documents that we call tutorials that we can provide to users that'll take them step by step through the process. If there's a button to press, there's going to be a picture of that button. There's going to be text instructions so that step by step through the process, this tutorial is helping that user. And why do we do this? Well, the fact of the matter is we can't help every user on every project. We just don't have enough time. even with our student workers, we just don't have enough time. So tutorials help us spend our efforts on improving the tutorial and iterating while allowing users to work autonomously in between our visits when we check in with them and see how things are going. So that with these tutorials, users can work autonomously and at their own pace. And much like our maintenance system, our tutorials gain value through iteration. Every time we get asked a question, we'll take that back to the tutorial and add that information in. So each of our tutorials has hundreds of people hours behind it. Access Level 3s follow online tutorials. These are the pieces of equipment that are safe enough to use that we can just prepare a training document and let users go. Hey Ian, tell us about Access Level 4.
Access Level 4, the most elusive of the access levels. Access Level 4 is follow standard operating procedures. These are things like hand tools, right? So screwdrivers, box cutters, pliers, wrenches, wood saw that you hold in your hand, right? These are things that you look at it and you think, well, that's safe. Danger. There's a reason this is not Access Level 0. This is where the majority of injuries occur. It's that thing that you don't think that's going to bite you that actually comes up and bites you. So someone's scraping something off a 3D print tray with a flat blade screwdriver, and of course they're scraping towards their stomach. Or they're using a box cutter and they didn't move their hand out of the way and things slipped unexpectedly. So, standard operating procedures. It's standard because it's written down. We have a document that you can download on the ThinkBox website called Standard Operating Procedures, and it has pictures and do's and don'ts for each of the hand tools in the space. Well, a vast majority of the hand tools in the space.
When used properly, these hand tools don't necessarily pose any risk. But not every user who comes into our space has all that prior experience, and so we are here to make up the difference, to educate them on how to use these hand tools safely. So we have a document of common hand tools and how to use them, but we also have our staff and students who are out in the space who have that experience so that if they see a user going awry, they can provide careful instruction to help set them on the right path.
So we do offer training, if as it were, for a screwdriver, but it's optional. If you know how to use a screwdriver and you're confident that you can do that safely, go ahead and use the screwdriver. If you've never used an adjustable wrench, and I've shown people how to use an adjustable wrench, it's amazing the difference in skill level between makers. But you know what? We all started somewhere, right? Nobody was born knowing how you weren't born with a wrench in your hand, as much as we want to believe it. We all started somewhere. So when we have users come in and they don't have that practical experience, they didn't get it at home, they didn't get it in high school, they can read through this document and familiarize themselves with the basic tools of the trade. So you may have noticed that these access levels are increasing in the amount of safety and training that is provided because the level of danger is increasing. We started with access level 1, no special instructions, then we got into tutorials, then we started talking about hand tools, where the majority of injuries actually occur. Now we're on to the top access level 5. Ray, what is it? I'm dying to know.
Access Level 5, attend training. So this is a category of our equipment that includes our mills, our lathes, our drill presses, our grinders and sanders and saws. These are the large powered machines that do provide risk of injuries or even fatalities if used improperly. So these are the pieces of equipment that we've said it is worth the investment to train and certify our users in the fundamentals of safe operation so that we provide training for these individuals so that we can be confident that they know the basics that will keep them working safe and effectively. And so how do we do this? On our website, we provide a study guide, which is a Google document, and a quiz. And once they've completed that quiz with 100%, then they can schedule an in-person training, also on our website. Now, these trainings are about an hour to an hour and a half long, and they're free.
So there's an online component and there's an in-person component, right? Because we have many people trying to request these trainings, and you don't need our help, our one-on-one individualized staff time to learn the names of the parts of the pieces of equipment. You've got a drill press with a table, a column, a motor, maybe some pulleys or an electronic speed control. It's got a quill. It's got a chuck. It's got a chuck key, right? It's got a foot. To learn the names of the parts of the equipment and the basic way to operate it, you don't need our one-on-one guidance. You can do that on your own. You can do that at your own speed, and you can do that without bothering staff who are rather overloaded. So we have offloaded some of the learning to online, but all of the learning can't be online. We need to physically show you how to put that mill bit in the mill collet. We need to show you how to peck drill for certain types of materials. We need to show you how to be safe around the machine, and we need to see visually that you can be safe around the machine, that you can operate it just like we trained you before we certify you on that machine.
All right, so let's run through those access levels just one more time.
Access level 1, no special instructions. This is things like the printer and the computer, where we don't offer instruction. Access level 2, submit your job online for the big expensive equipment that we don't want our users to break. Access level 3, follow online tutorials for things like the laser cutter, the vinyl cutter, and so on, where you can use it yourself at minimal danger. Access level 4, standard operating procedures. These are hand tools that may actually cause you some small source of injury, but not so much that we need to mandate training. Access level 5, the big, scary, hairy machines that could really bite you pretty hard if they wanted to. So there's an in-person training, and we need to certify you on the use of that machine.
Now, we publish these access levels on our website. We try to make them visible to our users so that they can understand how they get access, how they use all of this really cool equipment. And that serves two purposes. For one, it helps the user, but it also helps cover our butts.
Heinies.
Yeah. So those policies were created in conjunction with our university's stakeholders, like environmental health and safety and the legal team. These are the people who we want to be our allies. And if they're not our allies, they could be our obstacles. So we worked through the process with these people in order to come up with something that everyone was happy with. We wanted to be speaking their language.
This speaks their language. This fits into their existing paradigm. What's their existing paradigm? They want to see that there is written documentation, number one. They want to see that safety policies and training procedures are written down. They want to see that it's a living system that changes over time. When you have an accident in your space, you want to look at those safety policies, look at those training documents, and ask yourself, did that user follow our instructions or not? If they followed the instructions and still got injured, then you need to improve your instructions. If they didn't follow your instructions and got hurt, well, you need to improve your enforcement, right? You need to improve your supervision. That's the paradigm that environmental health and safety and the attorneys work on, that there's written documentation, it's a living system that changes and improves over time.
As you can see, the access level policies that we've put forward serve many purposes. For the users, they help provide an understanding of how they get access to this equipment, how they get started, what training or procedures they need to follow in order to use all of this equipment. For us, the managers, the Makerspace managers, the access policies help us do our preparation, our planning. They help us focus our energies on providing adequate precautions on equipment equal to their risk. And finally, for our key stakeholders like environmental health and safety or legal teams, the access levels provide backup. They show that we're thinking about these things and we've done our due diligence to make our makerspace as safe as possible.
That's all for today. Tune in next time for more Makerspace management tips. Until then, I'm Ian Charnas.
And I'm Ray Craggy, and this has been Makerspace Podcast. See you next time.
If you find this show valuable, please take 60 seconds and subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes or YouTube. If you can raise the visibility of Makerspace Podcast, it helps people find this show and join the conversation. Finally, if you know someone who is building or running a makerspace or thinking about it, consider sharing this with them.
You can find us online at makerspacepodcast.com or send us an email with your questions and feedback to info@makerspacepodcast.com. Special thanks to Kate Hart for our theme music.